Hi guys, it's Aegis here. So today I'm here with another D-standard deck profile, and this time I'll be covering one of my old favorite, Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. So he finally gets into play in standard, where ASO comes out together so that they can just be a good pair. And I have to say, this deck gives me a little bit like new feeling of playing Dragon Empire deck, and instead of like just doing a front row wipe, now I can actually do something like a select what I want to actually target to fight against, and then there's a lot of things. But at the same time, the deck, like the power level isn't like very strong, so that's a bit unfortunate, because I was hoping that he can like kind of like Maelstrom to actually pick up a good game, but so far he isn't doing that great, with a lot of reasons which I will try to explain what I feel about what this deck is lacking. But before that, let's go over the deck content and see how the deck actually works. So right line is our Narukami right line, so basically Spark Kid, Red Liver, Thunderstorm, and Vermillion. So when you go through the right line, 2-on-1 you get the Order Guard, and then when 3-on-2 you get a look at top 7 for a Narukami card basically, or the Order card. So by all means, it helps you search a lot of stuff, and if you use enough Narukami stuff, there shouldn't be a problem to search card from the 7. So don't need to worry about that. And for people who don't know what Vermillion does, so he get a few skills. First one is active skill, counterblast 1 once per turn. You choose 2 of your Narukami units. Make sure they're Narukami, they aren't just normal Dragon Empire units, and they will get plus 5k. And when this card attacks, you can also select 2 of your opponent's regard circle. Instead of picking a regard, he actually picks a circle, and it doesn't again requires you to only attack the front row. You can also pick units from the back row, and your Vanguard will fight against all 3 units together. Instead of paying like 3 counterblast, or even like 2 counterblast or whatever, now you just need to counterblast 1. You also get to pop your units, including himself, because he's also a Narukami unit, and he didn't say only can power up regards, so you can at least make him an 18k to beat over even like a Shadow Army token, which is usually 15k, and if you just 13k, you won't be enough to hit, so you can adjust that. And then you also get to pick back row units that usually you can't, because there are always units that like to just stay behind and they are key, but you don't have a way to actually pop them, because like when we come into Narukami, very early stage is always aiming for the front row, not the back row, or you need to pay a very high cost in order to do that, but now you don't need to. And he also got a second skill. When this card unit battle ends, if this turn you did play a normal order, and if your opponent's damage is 4 or less, you can discard 1 card and deal 1 damage to your opponent. So before you do your other attacks, after your Vanguard attacks, you can at least discard a card, if you play an order of course, to deal 1 damage to your opponent, to make sure they are getting close to 5 damage or to 5 damage. Of course, this is a damage, so that they can still get a defensive trigger, but then it's still a very good way to chase damage to your opponent, because if they're on 3, you attack, they get a 4, you deal 1 damage, they get a 5. If they like hit nothing at all, then you can still give them a lot of pressure, because they take 1 damage, they will lose unless they're agreed on, right? So so far, like when I see Vermillion, I was feeling this unit is so great, because like when we look at Vermillion before, he isn't actually great, I have to say, to be honest. Even though when first release, attacking front row is nice, but the cost is too high, and then getting into V, I think it still cost is a little bit too high within the V. yeah, basically. So we probably will still see more support for Vermillion, like at least from a promo, or like look here that we will get another kind of support as a double rare, hopefully. But so far we are still lacking some stuff. Even though he is a strong unit, but then it isn't good enough to carry over the whole deck. Let's talk about Thunderstorm. So Thunderstorm, I could talk about all the right hand skills, so I'm not talking about those anymore. If he's on Regard Circle, appears, you have a Narukami Vanguard, which you should when you're using this right line. Then a Soul Charge 1, and for the turn plus 5k. So at least it's a 15k on place attacker. You can do something, whatever you want, and Soul Charge is actually quite important when you see more cards actually being used in the deck. And then Red Liver Dragon. So when he boosts, if you have a Grade 3 or higher Narukami Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and you can bind one of your opponent's back row regards. So for some reason, this time all the binding is looking at the back. So yeah, very interesting. And if you can't bind anything, you can actually Soul Charge 2 if you want to. It's not a must. So I use him mainly for the Soul Charge, but sometimes when there are units that still like to stay at the back, then I would like to pop them as well. Yeah, that's basically it. And then the starter is just a starter, so nothing too fancy about the starter. And let's quickly go over the main deck. Okay, so I switched the angle a little bit, so you might hear the voice a little bit different, but here it comes. First, 3 more Vermillion, because we do want personal right, we do want the power, we do want the soul, we don't want the extra draw. That's all that matters. And what's the worst, he's still a very good attacker. And next, I am running 4 of the Eternal Thunderbolt. So this is a very important card of the deck, because your right line can search at least 1 copy and maybe 2, which is very important to drive you victory. Okay, so I need to adjust the angle a little bit more. Here we are. So this order actually saves the deck by a lot through a few things. Let's talk about his skill. First, this order can be played from drop zone, and of course you need to be a Vermillion and Narukami Vanguard in order to use that. And for the turn, you will actually get some skills. That is, first, when your opponent's Regard is on hit and will be retired from the Regard Circle, instead of going to drop zone, you get bind. And you also get another permanent skill for the turn, is that when there's no regards on your opponent's Regard Circle, all your friendly units will get plus 5k, and if this order is being played from the drop zone, it will be bind instead. So it's very important for so many reasons. Now, first thing first, that you need to buy cards in order to activate some other cards, which I will show you in a bit. If you know the deck well, you know what it is. If you don't know, stay tuned for what is coming up. That's one thing, to activate that. And 2, this card will bind himself. So worst case, you can just bind this card to actually make things happen, right? And 3, you get your front row plus power if your opponents basically have no regards, where it isn't that hard to accomplish actually, because some opponents don't even have a regard left on the board for you to do a lot of things. So yeah. And 4, you need to deal 1 damage to play an order. This is the order you want. And 5, that this card can play from the drop zone, which means it is basically a card for you to use for your right deck, right? So whenever you want to consider what to ditch for your right deck, you can immediately drop this card, because this card has no shield value. If you play from drop zone, it's a grade 3 order. You only can play it when you're in grade 3, which basically you will be ditching cards until you get into grade 3. So this is basically the best card for you to do it. And 6, there's so many good points about this card. That if you actually play this card from hand to the drop zone, right, it won't get bind, and the next turn you can still bind it to use the order again. So if you ditch none of this to the drop zone and all of them in your hand, the total number of times you can use is 8 times. Of course, you probably won't need to do it that much, but it is a possibility. So do be careful. Note that you can actually do that, and there are so many good points with this order. You need to make sure you protect him well, use it well, then it can still drive you victory. Okay, next, 3 more for the Storm, because it's a kind of a 15k beater. It's a soul charger. And then another key card of the deck, which is Dragonic Depth Size. So I rank 4 with, of course, for a lot of good reasons. First, during your turn, if your opponent's friend will have no regards, this card will get plus 5k. It's quite easy to actually get there, and instead of being 9k, this time he's a 10k, so even in premium he can make himself very useful. And when your when this card attacks your attacking a Vanguard, if you have a Grade 3 or higher Narukami Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 2 to bind one of your opponent's regard. Doesn't say anywhere, so it can be front row, can be back row. You bind it. If you cannot bind anything, you draw a card. So worst case is still a like OG Rising Phoenix that you can Soul Blast and draw a card. But have to say, I mainly use him to draw because I have like very sufficient retiring or binding power to do whatever I need. So I mainly use him to draw. But if you really need to pop something, he is still have that option for you. And next, I'm running 2 of the Dragonic Lativa. So this is a new card coming out with Vermillion, and she get a few interesting skill and is a order card support. So first thing, that if this card is being called to Riga Circle except by a unit effect for the turn, if you play normal order, so +1, you can look at the top 5 of your deck and to call a card that is below your Vanguard grade from the cards that you reveal, of course, to the Riga Circle. If you actually choose a normal order, because you can choose any card actually, then that order card will go to your hand, and you shuffle all the cards back to your deck. And the second skill is when this unit attack a grade 3 or higher card, if the same column have like no units on that for each circle there is, this card will get plus 5k. So if they have 2 and this circle that is on the column of this card, then you get plus 10k. It doesn't count yourself, only count your opponents, so do know about that. I use her mainly to do my board rebuilding usage, because it's quite easy to lose your board as well while you don't have actually a lot of defensive power, and when your opponents want to stop you to do a lot of things, they will try to give you less counterblast by hitting order units. So this is a card that don't cost you any counterblast to actually do something, and it only requires you to play a normal order, which is not hard to do. So I'm using her, but I do use a lot of souls, and I play the game actually quite quick, so I don't actually use her too much while trying to maximize the Narukami units that I'm running, and also make room to run the following card, which is Desolate Spark Dragon. So this is a card that I first never thought myself would be using, but then when I face decks like Welstra, face against Lugier, I'm so annoyed by my opponents having no units on the field. Exactly nothing. They only have the Vanguard, and they bounce everything. They use units replacement and they turn back to what they are, so they're not units anymore. I have nothing to retire. I don't see the reason why I'm playing the order, and some cards that I'm going to show you guys in a bit. So I decided to actually use this card. Why? Because first, this card is a personalized support. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you personalize this turn, so +1, choose one of your opponent's regards retired, and this card will get +5k power until the end of the battle, and your opponents choose 3 normal units from their drop zone and bind them. So if you are not giving me a single card on the board, now I'm touching your drop zone. That's exactly what he's for. Mainly if you have nothing on the field, I will still be binding some of your cards. Of course, your order card will still bind itself to fulfill some requirements, but being annoying is still important in this deck. And he is another kind of a retire with a little power boost compared to other personalized support that you see, like +10k to 2 units. He only +5, but being able to bind cards from the drop zone sometimes actually quite important, because there are, for example, Eva, that they do recycle cards. So if you can actually bind those units, that's good. The monster deck, which is also ranked, that they need to put cards from the drop zone to the order zone, and then rotate them to power up the monsters, right? And then you can still bind those cards away. So that's very important, I guess, to a lot of decks that try to be annoying by not leaving any cards on the board. Then you touch their drop zone, and even against Lugia, they put everything to the soul, right? But still, they will have cards that they want to put them back from the drop zone, and you bind them away, so that they can't do it anymore. And then 3 more red liver dragoon, mainly again for the soul charging and maybe pop the back row. And finally, the reason why we need to bind cards is because of Rising Phoenix. So let's talk about Rising Phoenix. Drop zone skill. During your turn, if there are cards that get bind by card effects, and if you have an Dragonic Vanguard, you can soul +1 and call this unit to the rear guard circle. Now, activating the order from the drop zone and bind it can fulfill this, but you need to activate this skill on that spot, so you won't be using this card for multi-attacking. So in order to do multi-attacking, you need to either use your Vanguard to attack those units, and when they retire they get bind, then you call those units out. Or you need to use this, to do that, right? And when your opponents really have nothing on the field, as I said before, like Welstra, like Lugia, they will never come out as an extra attacker. They can come out as boost, they can come out as base attacker, while you're still trying to do some stuff before you actually attacking. So these are cards that try to increase your attack, but those decks are not going to allow you to do that. So that's why I'm running Desolate's Spark Dragon, because this card, when attacks, you can actually do it already. So by binding cards from your opponent's drop zone, you make Rising Phoenix available to at least build up another column to do 4 attacks. Because you can call 2 of them, they will be at least 16k. And then depending on what you have, then just do whatever that fits, right? So it could be a personal ride that boosting to 26 line, it can be a trigger to boost it there, it can be any other stuff, right? But at least, instead from being a dead card, this card makes Rising Phoenix with a better purpose to be in the deck. Else, I really about to actually cut down Rising Phoenix. I don't want to. If I don't see this card, I will actually cut. Rising Phoenix because I don't get to do it that much, or maybe just because my friends are using those decks that I don't actually have anything to burn. But now with this card, I'm more confident to actually use 4 Rising Phoenix, and I'm happy about it. Rising Phoenix also got another skill that to retire this unit from your regular circle as an active skill, you can choose one of your unit plus 5k. It doesn't matter if it's a Narukami unit or not, but you can still pump. And then with your Vermillion pump, you can actually pump 3 units total, or when you don't have any counter blast, you can at least use Rising Phoenix to pop. Pop itself plus 5k to a unit. That sometimes that is just what requires to hit. So at least we have the choice. And by putting Rising Phoenix to a drop zone, which means we will be ready to do multiple attacks if available. But most of the time, usually, we will just attack with 2 regards in the front from the front row, and then use Vermillion with the order, attack a few units, bind them, and then your Rising Phoenix pop out to do more attacks, right? So by having this changes things a lot, and it actually changes my attack sequencing by quite a lot. Instead of doing like Imagination 5 attacks, I'm usually doing 4, and as long as you have the mindset to do 4 attacks instead of 5, I think you will be fine at all for like against a lot of things. And then PGs, if you want to use the Blitz order, you can use it, but I just don't have that much, so I'm running just 4 of the normal PGs. Triggers, Dragon Empire over trigger, we just love it. Withstanding great. Soul and crit, I actually do play it sometimes to get the souls I want, but if you can't afford it, that's fine. 4 more crits. 3 fronts. I am using fronts mainly for the defensive purpose, but I am a little bit tempting to change it to draw, so that I have a lot more chances of survival and increasing my speed of winning games, because drawing an extra card can gives me something that hits numbers. Front sometimes does, but because my attacking sequence is starting to change, so this is something that I'm debating, but the 20k defense is still very tempting, so I'm still using fronts. And even when most of the time I can only power up 2 units with fronts while 1 already attacked and 1 is being newly called, I can still kind of bait my opponents to just guard for my Vanguard attacks, while the front, it's still one of the calculation missing part against like 2 to pass, because when you see a front, you don't need to think. You just, okay, front roll, and then pull another trigger, and done. And then for heals, so if you want to use effect heals, you can. They shouldn't be expensive at all, but that's up to you. But so far, I think just the normal basic 15k heals is good enough with this deck. And so far, I have to say I don't see a lot of rooms for changing stuff. First, you can see basically 90% of your main deck except triggers are Narukami units, because my non-Narukami units is only my PGs, this, and my triggers. All other stuff are Narukami. This not considered actually a Narukami card, but through your searches, they are a valid target. So yeah, that's basically it. But I am hoping to see more Narukami cards, or cards that actually support the deck a little bit more, especially things that I don't need to rely on Desolate Spark Dragon, because even though he can do something that I wanted to do, but I still need to person it right, and if I can't person it right, I will still be stuck at the same state. And I just want to enjoy popping stuff, so maybe later we can see a promo that force your opponents to call something out so they can pop it, or just a simple bind from drop zone to actually activate a lot of things during the battle phase, of course, so that we can further utilize Rising Phoenix, or another card that can just come out from the drop zone when you bind something from yourself, so basically activating the order from the drop zone, and when those attacks you can bind another stuff from your opponent's drop zone or whatever. Hopefully that can happen, but we will see. But so far the deck, the content is solid, but then the power level I think is still lag, but that usually happens when a new deck drops, unless they are Brand or unless they're Mushi King, because that's different. So we will see. Hopefully we can get more support, or even from the generic support we can actually get something good. Then maybe they can actually bring the deck up to another level, like Maelstrom did, Lukier did, Minerva did. Like, there's so many possibilities from all these decks that when they first release, they aren't very appealing. They are cool units, they have good skill, but they are not appealing to actually go top. And then later we can actually have some more support to make them actually go top. And hopefully they are within the booster, not the promo, so they will be easy to get. Yeah. So that's basically it for this deck profile. If there are any questions you want to ask, feel free to ask in the comments down below. I'm always ready. Whenever I see a comments, I just try to answer them if I can, unless they're spam. Subscribe to my channel for more deck profiles, deck fights, and unboxing stuff. I keep doing those weekly, so you will see them eventually when I upload stuff. And yeah, share with your friends, subscribe, and just communicate. Yeah, so that's it for this deck profile, and I will see you guys in the next video. Signing off.